I'm not surprised, but I am saddened by the extreme emotion connected with this committee. I think that is just no way to get things done. I do believe that on some panelists, I do believe that it is that our Second Amendment rights are very important because a country with armed citizens can rise up against tyranny. And we know that in some parts of the world that sometimes that has been of extreme danger. And I would say that the right of responsible citizens to own guns is very important, and that our country needs to read that. But then I think we need to get into a discussion about who would have or shouldn't have guns. We don't want them in the hands of small children, and I don't think the 6-year-olds use that gun unsupervised. We don't want small children to have guns. We don't want people with a history of substance abuse or domestic abuse to have them. But we don't really have other guidelines, and I would like the debate to be get into the particulars and do more reading. That's the statement of thank you.
Yeah. Someone from Chicago, you have had in Chicago the toughest, strictest laws in this land. You couldn't even drive through the city with a gun in your car, and yet you have the highest crime rate in the nation. Could you tell me why your strict gun controls, most strict they place out, gives you the highest crime?
I can tell you that the reason why there's gun violence because it's linked to economics. There's no jobs. There needs to be more job training. There needs to be more education. And you have young men that's selling drugs, and this is how they get money. The guns, the violence that's taking place is between warring gangs, and the gangs sell drugs, and that's the reason why you have the violence. But 75% of the people that shot, that's killed, have gang affiliation, and something like 75% of the assailants have gang connections. So you can clearly see that there's a gang problem there, that you have warring gangs that's there. So you can come up with all the strict laws you want to, and that won't solve the problem. In order to solve the problem, you have to address the economic factor there.
That the guns aren't the problem. It's the social. Because we've had this war on poverty. You've had your gangs there forever, and no one's stopping that gang culture and all of these women out of wedlock, not having kids, and we've spent money on Chicago. But you and the other people up there need to take care of their own problems. And they aren't taking care of it. They're hurting us down here, but say, no guns. We don't have that problem. You need to solve the economic problems, the gang problems in your city. That's what you do.
I agree with you, sir. And all that can be solved through proper education.
I just want clarification on what you said, sir. So you're saying that in Chicago, with the very strictest laws that we have in all of Illinois, and you're saying that more government and more imposed strict laws did not help at all.
No.
So then why do we think it's going to work for the United States all over?
I'm not here to address the United States. I'm concerned about the criminal element and the murder rate in Chicago.
Okay, we have a gentleman in the back who has been very patient. So thank you.
Thank you. Like the young lady up in front, I was appalled at seeing the panelists attack. These gentlemen are here to defend what happened in Germany back in the 40s. I was there. I know what it was. As a little side, just so you gentlemen know how that all started, gun control in Germany. As a young hunter, I'm not proud of what we did, but one of the controls we exercised as we took German cities was to have the population bring in their weapons to the center of town. Some beautiful rifles, beautiful shotguns were piled into a pile, and we poured gasoline on them and burned them. There's gun control for you. It worked for a short time. But anyway, these panelists are not here to be attacked. They're not here to defend what happened in the past. I'm from Chicago. I know what you're talking about. It was peaceful. It was a nice city when I lived there as a child, 1925 on. It is economics. It is gangs. It is drugs. And this has nothing to do with what the program here is. It is how to get this problem solved, not to accuse the panelists for what's happening in their area. Thanks.
I want to get a couple of students and then the gentleman on the front row. Yes.
Hi, I just have an actual question. I'm from Illinois. I grew up in Chicago, in a suburb of Chicago, and growing up, my mom wouldn't let me take the red line after 10 o'clock by myself. So obviously there's a problem up north, and now that I go to school down here, I can completely understand where all these people from the southern parts of Illinois are coming from. I have multiple friends now that are hunters. I mean, I've never even met a hunter in my life. But I'm just wondering, if between the two of you, if you think there is a way in Illinois for this to work, for people to, I mean, obviously not every single person in this room is going to end up happy, but is there a way to come to a common agreement almost to how the South of Illinois can cooperate with people from Chicago?
I'm sorry, who are you addressing your question to?
The officer from Charleston and the man from Chicago.
Statewide diplomacy, that weren't really on my book today. That's a good question. But I tell you what, I guess where it really comes from with me, and I think he's touched on this, and I think this, we're going to agree on this, is that people have to be held responsible for their own behaviors. Charleston embraces students from all over the state. Please come down here and go to school. We've got a wonderful city. All that we ask is that you be responsible. You behave yourself. You don't engage in criminal activity. And I think that's what he wants up there in Chicago also. I don't want to see all the Southern Illinois gun owners, including myself and my family, penalized because of what goes on in the cities, be it Chicago or anywhere else, or someplace on the other side of the country. And I guess to answer your question, and not make a statement, I think people just, the community has to hold people responsible for their actions. And it sounds to me like he's holding criminals in Chicago responsible for their criminal behavior, and I'd like to see more of that, actually. I'd like to see more people in the communities where bad things are happening, holding those people who are committing criminal acts responsible. And I think that, in short, is part of the solution. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, gentleman, great.
I don't want to pick on anybody from Chicago just because they're from Chicago, but I got a series of questions. Do you think that young children growing up in a home learn from their parents and their teachers?
Most definitely.
Okay, so these children who grow up at home and they learn from mom and dad and they're taught how to take care of a gun at a young age, they're taught the strict behavioral attitudes they need at home, and then they go to school and they're taught, they do better than a child who doesn't have that environment. But what we're seeing, I believe, and I think you'll agree, is we need leaders in Chicago like we have here in the state. We need politicians in Chicago like we have here in the state. We need people that are honest and take care of our people. And I don't think that in Chicago we actually have that. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. My whole, the right to bear arms, that's up to the individual. That's an American right that you have. What we have in Chicago is you have criminals that have illegal guns. With gun ownership comes a certain amount of responsibility. So I'm not here to argue with the NRA or nothing like that. That's why I say that Chicago it's a completely different situation. And the situation that exists there is that you have criminals that have taken up the drug trade because there's no jobs and the lack of economic opportunities, and there's a lack of proper education. When you was talking about the father and the son, and that's proper education. So if you have the proper education, then we can turn this thing around. But there are illegal guns, and there's a drug trade that exists there, and there's literally a drug war that's being played out on the streets of Chicago, and that's what we're dealing with. Again, I'd like to reiterate illegal guns.
Exactly, and I understand that. I guess I'm thinking if the politicians and the police force in the Chicago area would crack down on these people that are causing the problem. Don't slap their hands. Don't push them aside. Make them responsible for what they do. And I think we can curb part of that problem. But as far as the economic impact, I don't think that there's anything down here in southern Illinois that we have that we're going to be able to take to Chicago and create jobs in the Chicago area. I think people go from here to big cities like Chicago looking for employment, looking for jobs. And it's going to be very tough to send those people down here and find jobs when we've got plenty of people down here already without jobs.
There's plenty of jobs in Chicago. There's a mindset that you're dealing with, and through proper education, people can create jobs for themselves. And so there's an educational factor that's there, and that's what we're dealing with, you know. So yeah, I'm not here to argue with the NRA or nothing like that and everything. Through proper training, through proper education, then a lot of these things can be solved. So far as the stiffer sentences and things like that, about a week ago, there was a gang on the west side of Chicago known as the Vice Lords, and the feds came in and busted a lot of them. About 30 of them about 30 of them was taken to custody. I guarantee you, those 30 guys that was taken to custody, the day they was taken to custody, the next day there was 30 other drug dealers that was out there to take their place. And so what happened is, there's a mindset. You have to change the mindset, and you change the mindset through proper education. There's no jobs down. It's a bunch of jobs up there in Chicago. And what happened is the people have to, through proper education, then we can create jobs. There's a bunch of jobs that can be created. And so I'm not coming down here to look for jobs, and we got plenty of jobs up there. In fact, we got enough jobs up there where we can have people come from down here and fill some of the jobs up there through the proper education.
Young man in the Broncos.
Let's go Broncos. I'm hoping to change pace a little bit. For the law enforcement professionals, what's your opinion on concealed carry?
That's me. my opinion, I'm all for it. I think concealed carry, as a matter of fact, I've advocated for it, I've lobbied to Springfield for it, so I'm somewhat biased on the subject. I've wanted concealed carry for many years, and I think that it's a good thing that we've got it. But again, I'm going to say this also. People are going to have to be responsible, and gun owners all across the other 49 states that have got concealed carry prove to be responsible in concealed carry, so I absolutely don't see that it's going to cause a problem. There's an educational requirement to it, which some gun owners was a hard pill to swallow for them because they didn't feel like they should. Some states don't have any. I was reading today where Vermont, you can just get I don't even think there's a permit, you just carry. So, no, personally, I don't worry about it. I don't think it's going to cause any problems. And most states, from what I've read and the research that I've done, have found that the crime rates actually go down when concealed carry is enacted in their state. So, we'll see how we'll see how tough it is to get things rolling. This is new for Illinois, so there's probably going to be some rusty wheels moving.
Gentlemen, in the front row,
Hi, I've got a question for all four of the panelists. The United States is third in the murders throughout the world. But if you take out Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and New Orleans, according to the FBI, the United States is fourth from the bottom out of 192 countries worldwide. What's your ideal with these four cities? And even though they have the toughest gun control laws in the United States, if you take those four cities out, we rank the lowest almost in the entire world. Can you address how Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and New Orleans could best help the rest of the United States, especially you individuals from Germany?
So it's interesting you would ask the Germans that question. When he studied for 2 years in the police academy,
wurde uns immer gelehrt, dass ein bestes Beispiel, um Kriminalität zu vermindern,
that he was told that there in the academy that the best way, the best example to lower the crime rate
war das Beispiel von New York.
was the example of New York City.
Speziell die broken windows.
Especially the so-called broken window theory.
Also das war für die ganze Welt ein Weg, um Kriminalität zu verhindern oder zu vermindern.
For the entire world, that became an example of the best way to lower the crime rate.
Er hat mit Sicherheit Experten im eigenen Land, die sich darüber Gedanken machen und globale Kriminalitätsbekämpfung ist jetzt.
So yes, in Germany they did think about and discuss criminality, the crime rates all around the world, and that turned out to be, in their opinion, the best way to fight crime rates.
Ein leerstehendes Haus mit eingeschlagenen Fenstern.
An empty house with a broken window
hat den Auszug von Mietern, von Nachbarn zur Folge?
It has consequences for the neighborhood.
Immer mehr Häuser schauen genauso aus.
More and more houses will begin to look like that.
Ja. Und die Bevölkerungsstruktur, die Leute, die da wohnen, verändern sich.
And the people who live in that neighborhood, they begin to change.
Und damals, ich weiß nicht der Name des New Yorker Bürgermeisters, möglich, ja, ich weiß nicht mehr genau.
The mayor of New York at the time
Hat einen Erlass gemacht, dass kein Haus verfallen darf.
Right. He issued an edict that no building was going to fall into that state of dilapidation.
Wie ein Krebsgeschwür in
It was like a cancer that was spread.
I think the answer is very easy again, because the best prevention against violence, drug using, whatever, is jobs. So we don't talk about the main problem, we always talking about the symptoms. And one symptom is that people start to deal with drugs or whatever. And for this business, they use guns. So, I think our message is not no guns for normal. Yeah, because I have a gun. I'm a hunter. I have a gun, but I need a reason for this. And in Germany, perhaps, or in other countries in Europe, it's not common to go into a shop and to buy a machine gun, because they say, for what do you need this? For what? So, just for fun, okay. You can talk about this. Huh? I don't know. So, I think nobody wants to take the guns from a normal civilism. So, we talk about crime prevention. And I think we talk about a new culture to understand that a gun is could be a very violent thing, of course. And so I think it's for people with a good developed consciousness. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's jet lag now. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So I think here, if you own a gun, nobody in Germany would take your gun away. For what? Why? Why should they? No. It means that it's more difficult to get one. And if we realize that somebody has a gun, and we know that this person has no reason, then we have to go to the police or whatever, so they can take this gun out of this, and control it. Okay.
I was wondering if people on the panel were aware that in the 20th century, over 100 million people were murdered by their own governments. And these mass murders by governments, they occurred in Germany, in Soviet Union, China, in Cambodia. There's even been problems in places like Cuba. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is that gun control has always preceded these mass murders by governments. And gun control is a very dangerous thing because it leaves people helpless in the face of tyranny. And it empowers government because they're the only ones with the legal right to wield force. They can do whatever they want to the people if they are the only ones that have guns. That's all I have to say.
Steve, stand up. Yes.
Well, we seem to have made a connection that resultant gun crime and illegal drug trade tend to go hand in hand. So it seems to be, in terms of the gun control debate, not a matter of should there be more or less guns, or should we have more or less guns in more or less places. It's a matter of if we can control the illegal gun trade, we can combat gun violence. So my question basically is to the gentleman from Illinois, do you think if we change the way we deal with drugs, we can combat gun violence? And to the gentleman from Germany, do you think the way you guys handle drug policy, which is obviously different from the way we do in the United States, do you think that has contributed to lower amounts of gun violence?
Well, when you look at the drugs and the drug trade, there's two factors that exist there. There's an economic factor, but also I think through proper education, then we can deal with the drugs also. If you were to look at cigarettes in this country, 50 years ago, almost every adult in this country smoked cigarettes, but through a lot of different advertisements and a lot of different education and everything, a lot of people have gotten away from smoking cigarettes. So the same thing could probably be done with drugs. Then I heard the argument that with the prohibition of drugs, if you was to legalize drugs and everything, then it would take the criminal element out of it, and you know, so those are a couple of arguments there.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is, with the police and then the military, a byproduct of the social-political anarchy of the imperialist male, of the dominant imperialist male. Everything we talked about tonight can be pointed at the male, not the family. Who was it, the male, who clubbed each other to death first, and the whole thing evolved.
I have questions from a couple of students. This young man, yeah, please stand up.
I'd just like to thank you all for being here. This is for the officer from Charleston. I'm a Charleston resident. I'm born in Charleston. Sarah Bush, I've lived in Charleston. I go here to Eastern, so I've always been. And I agree. We don't really have too much of a gun culture. It's not, guns aren't really something to worry about here. At the same time, I've been brought up in the Charleston school districts, and I've been around the Coles County area. I know of kids who have brought shotgun shells to school. I know who brought airsoft guns to school. I know people who have brought real guns to schools, and not with the intent to use them, but for the image that it's the cool thing to do. And I know we've talked about a lot about responsibility, and I know the gentleman from Chicago was talking about education, but what are some ways we can try to change that attitude about how, instead of guns being the cool thing, because it's, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time until it comes from fake guns or toy guns becoming a real threat.